Welcome to High Country, ladies and gentlemen, the new album by The Sword, and with it actually comes a myriad, a fresh dose of questions actually about this band, and probably one of the key questions that have come out of this 15-track, 50-minute album is whether or not The Sword is truly a metal band anymore. Or are they really just straddling kind of the midway point, the mid-barrier between rock and heavy metal? A couple albums ago, with the excellent Warp Riders, it definitely seemed that these guys were a full-fledged stoner metal band that had some rock principles, some rock qualities, and ever since then it seems that they have been trending a little bit more toward the rock side. And here's the real question: does it really fucking matter? And the answer to that question is it really kind of doesn't, considering whether they're stoner rock or just rock, or whether they're metal. The Sword are very good. And High Country actually proves it. This is more of a traditional rock record, though, for the record, in my opinion, simply because it has a little bit more of that freeform capability to it. It's not something that needs to be heavy at all times just for the sake of that. And that might seem like a bit of a generalization. In fact, it may even seem a bit derogatory whenever it comes to speaking about heavy metal. But whenever you listen to this album, you get a lot of the feelings of groups such as Graveyard from these days, but also bands such as Led Zeppelin. There's a lot of great guitar harmony. There's just a lot of freeform plucking, some great work, and then the heavier portions of this disc remind you of bands such as Clutch, which is always a really cool reference to have, considering Clutch is another one of those groups that seems to tread the line and toe the line between rock and heavy metal, but most people are okay with calling them a rock band, so why not The Sword? I guess we'll never know. So High Country being 15 tracks long definitely seems a bit off-putting probably to some, but most of these tracks are going to be within the 2 to 4 minute long range, with the longest track coming in at 5.5 minutes, that being Mist and Shadow, which is also consequently one of the highlights of this disc, along with tracks such as Buzzards and the self-titled High Country song as well. Overall, this is a disc that is extremely creative in its process. It's one that certainly really fits the rock envelope a little bit more, considering its more traditional scope and traditional specter of what this is all about. It's very creative. They go with a couple of different techniques whenever it comes to introducing tracks. It still showcases a little bit of their strange, almost sci-fi quality that they displayed with albums such as Warp Riders in the past, and instead sort of transfer them to really give us soundscapes that not only fit that stoner rock ideal, that stoner rock variety, but also just really work well for the compositions in general. So overall, the addition to some further production work and some further experimentation whenever it comes to tone, to pacing, and to overall style has certainly served The Sword extremely well. They are becoming a little bit less of just the mold of a stoner rock or a stoner metal band, and instead transforming before our eyes with this album into sonic pioneers, which is definitely high praise. High Country is a very good album, and I'm just going to throw that out there almost immediately. This has the perfect blend of instrumental bliss and instrumental creativity, as it does with that satisfying stoner ideal or stoner appeal. And it's not something that's universally just one or the other, considering you look at tracks on the latter portion of this album, such as Turn to Dust, and you get a softer number that has that sort of rasp to the vocal structure, but aside from that, it is musically very minimal, and it suits the song very well, even if it continues to sort of put you in a bit of a you're kind of uneasy whenever you listen to it a little bit, because you're wondering what's going to happen, but in the end, whenever you realize that nothing really does, you feel very relaxed before going into the Bees of Spring to finish this album off. I mean, how can an album that has a song called Unicorn Farm on it really be all that bad? It's really kind of an impossibility. Overall, the creativity that this album displays really works to its benefit magnificently, as we've mentioned prior, but it really is a highlight. It's also what's probably led to a lot more of these conversations about what the Sword actually is as a band as far as genre is concerned, but I'll just tell you what they are kind of flat out, and that's very, very good, and this is a very good album to kind of back it up. This is an 84 out of 100 album. I think that this album has a lot of tightness and a lot of cohesion to it, but sometimes gets lost within itself. Maybe this is something where some of the introductions or the instrumentals could actually have worked very well with some of these tracks because them being individual does not always work in the favor of the overall flow of the album. But aside from that, as an individual song, as an individual track, they're wonderful. So that's kind of being a little bit nitpicky. Aside from that, the only real question that I'm going to have on my mind, I don't have to answer until December, and that's whether or not these guys are going to end up on the top 25 or 35 or 50, whatever list for heavy metal albums, or if they're going to be on the top 15 or 20, whatever, for rock albums. And the answer that I'm going to give right now is they may just be on both. Who knows? But I want to know what you guys think about high country, and I know what you're thinking whenever you hear the words high country. And I'm right there with you. But I want to know in the comments below what you guys think about this disc. Also, I don't want you guys to forget that there's a new Deaf Heaven song that we talked about earlier this week, as well as a brand new Battlecross album that we talked about yesterday that's just fantastic. You have to check out the reviews of both of those, which there will be links for in the description box below. Cover Killer Nation, I want to know what you think about high country. Let me know, and I'll talk to you later. Peace.